Caseus, Clone Wars. Part 4, The Shroud of Dravok. Chapter 3. Dravok sat in his cell, his head down on his knees. There he remained, silent, unmoving. Even when food was brought to his cell, he wouldn't touch it. He simply stayed put, biding his time. He remained that way until he heard a familiar voice. Dravok. His gaze shifted upwards to Master Takai standing outside of his cell, staring in at him, 2 guards on either side of her.
Kukuri. Come to grace me with your presence, I see.
You need to start talking, Dravok. You're in deep trouble. And the longer you hold out, the longer you'll stay in there. Tell me what I need to know. Dravok leaned back with his hands behind his head.
What is there to tell? You know everything about why I did what I did.
Not that. You need to tell me why you allowed yourself to be discovered. Dravok looked her in the eye.
Allowed?
Don't even think about playing dumb with me, Dravok. You've spent 6 years effortlessly eluding capture. Back on Nalhada, you were 10 steps ahead of us. What is your game plan here? Dravok stood and stepped closer to the barrier between them.
Maybe I just got careless.
Master Takai dismissed the guards who stepped out of the room. I don't believe you. I know you better than that.
Why are you really here, Kukuri? You can't hide it. You're here for something else.
Master Takai's gaze faltered slightly as she looked down. With everyone you've hurt, after all the terrible things you've done, I needed to see.
See what?
Master Takai looked up as a deep sorrow filled her eyes. If there was anything left of the man I used to love. Dravok's smug grin slowly turned upside down as he stared at her. Dravok, you were once one of the most caring and noble people I ever knew. But you chose a path that led you here. What happened to you? Dravok looked down for a moment and then stared back into her eyes.
That man died a long time ago.
Master Takai wiped away a tear from her eye and turned to leave.
Kukuri.
She stood still, no longer facing him.
Of all the people I wanted hurt, you were never one of them.
She turned back around and stepped closer.
I wish things could have been different.
So do I. The two stared at each other through the barrier. It's not too late. Show some remorse. Own up to what you've done. Dravok's expression turned sour once again.
I stand by what I did, Kukuri. You should have stayed out of it all.
Your actions resulted in the deaths of many innocent Jedi.
Necessary sacrifices.
Our friends!
The means to an end.
Kukuri looked at Dravok in disgust. I don't know who you are anymore.
You're a cog in a decaying machine, Kukuri. The disease of the Jedi and the Republic will soon infect the galaxy beyond any hope.
Master Takai took one final look at Dravok and walked out of the room, leaving him staring at the doorway. Back at the temple, Caseus and Corbin were giving R3 a tune-up and giving him some additional upgrades. There we go. Next time we come across some battle droids, they're in for a few surprises. Thanks for your help, Corbin. R3's been needing a few upgrades for a while.
No problem. Thanks again, by the way, for talking with me yesterday. I needed that.
No problem. We want you in a good mindset for the duel tomorrow. R3 beeped as Sarah made her way over with a few tools. Here's the stuff you needed. What's it for, anyway? Cassius took the box of tools. You'll see. Okay, R3, you ready? R3 whistled and chirped as Cassius began to spray R3 with a series of different paints and replacing a few parts of his dome with newer pieces. After an hour, Cassius stood and looked over R3, now sporting a dark green and brassy gold color scheme. Not too bad if I do say so myself. Sarah smiled and knelt down, patting R3's head. Oh, R3, you look so handsome. Caseus laughed as he felt his comlink beeping. Caseus, come meet me in the meditation chamber. I need to speak with you. Okay, I'll be right there, Master. Wonder what she wants. Dunno. I'll catch you guys later. Caseus went down the steps and into the corridors leading to the meditation chamber where Master Takai sat. You wanted to see me, Master? Have a seat. Caseus sat across from his teacher. I spoke to Dravok. Did he say anything? Nothing useful. But that's not why I called you here. Okay. So what's the reason? Caseus, I told you a long time ago that Dravok and I used to be close. I never really told you how close we were. Caseus listened intently. We were both quite young, and we held so many of the same beliefs. The more time we sat and talked, the more we developed feelings for each other. You loved Dravok? Master Takai stared out the window. He wasn't always like he is now. There was a time when Dravok was a lot like you. Caring, brave, and willing to do anything for the Order. But something happened along the way. He became bitter and jaded by the Council and the Republic. They were never doing enough in his eyes. Always focused more on politics than helping others. After a while, we got into a fight. And I knew then that it wouldn't work. But in my heart, there was always a part of me that held out hope that he would see the light again. Maybe it was just wishful thinking. Caseus started to get a bit nervous. What does this have to do with me? You already know, don't you, Caseus? Caseus stayed silent as his heart sank. I know you and Sarah have these same feelings for each other. I see it in how you greet each other, how you talk to each other. Most of all, I see it in how you look at each other. I know that you know that as a Jedi, such attachment is forbidden. It's part of our code, our way of life. Caseus felt as though he would be sick. He tried to keep it secret. Clearly, he wasn't doing a good job of it. Are you going to turn me over to the Council for this? Master Takai stood and continued to gaze out the window. As I said, Dravok and I once shared many views. These days there's not much we agree on. But one belief I still hold is that attachment is not necessarily a detriment. In fact, your love for Sarah seems to be a great motivator for you in times of crisis. Caseus looked up at her. No. Your secret is safe with me. Under the explicit condition that your loyalties lie with the Jedi above your relationship with Sarah. Should the day come where you need to choose between your duty as a Jedi and Sarah, I expect you to make the right decision. Caseus breathed a sigh of relief. I will. Thank you, Master. I'm sorry I kept this from you. I was afraid of what you'd do if you ever found out. Master Takai sat in front of Caseus, her bright blue eyes looking into his. Your love for Sarah is not something to be ashamed of, Caseus. But it's something you need to be able to control. Your attachment to her could lead you down a dangerous path should you allow it. I don't want to see that happen to you. Is that clear? Yes, Master. Good. Now be on your way. And remember what we've talked about here. I will, Master. I promise. Caseus left the meditation chamber and rushed upstairs to his quarters. He felt as though he would collapse. She knew. She knew everything. How long had she known? And what if someone else found out? He took out his comlink and called Sarah over. She arrived shortly after and saw him sitting on his bed with a nervous look. Caseus? What is it? Is something wrong? Something is very wrong. It's Master Takai. She knows. Knows what? Caseus looked into her eyes. She knows about us. Sarah's eyes widened. What did she say? She said she's not going to tell anyone. Sarah sighed in relief. What are we going to do? Caseus took her hand. Sarah, I'm going to tell you this, and I want you to be straightforward. Sarah, I love you. I do. But we're playing a dangerous game here. If someone else finds out, we could both be expelled from the Order. So I'm going to ask you, if you love me, are you prepared to stand by me? There's so much at stake here that we failed to realize, until now. If you decide to end things between us, I understand, but I need to know. Sarah held onto Cassie's hand, looking down before slowly letting go. I need some time to think. I understand. Sarah stood and left the room, leaving Caseus sitting on his bed, confused and conflicted. He didn't want to lose her. But the Jedi Order, it was his whole life, his everything. Was it worth the risk? The next day, Caseus couldn't find Sarah anywhere. He tried to contact her comlink, but there was no reply. He was worried, but he had to try and put it aside for now. His duel with Corbin was in an hour. He sat inside of his quarters and tried to meditate, trying to let go of his anxieties. At the very least, his secret was safe with his master. Still, if Sarah were to break things off between them, he didn't want to think about it. An hour passed, and Cassius stretched and made his way to the training grounds, where a large group of potential Padawans were waiting, with Master Drolig and Master Terran overseeing the duel. In the corner of the courtyard, Sarah stood, a blank expression on her face as she made eye contact with Caseus.
Caseus, I'm pleased you could join us.
Thank you, Master.
Corbin should be here any moment. Take your position in the dueling circle.
As he stepped into the circle, he tossed his robes aside and prepared himself. Corbin soon entered the training grounds and did the same. Caseus smiled to his friend, trying to hide his discomfort with the current situation. Master Drolig stepped forward to greet the Padawans.
Greetings, young ones. I trust your day is going well. I'm sure you're all eager to compete in the upcoming tournament. There you will work your hardest to win the favor of a potential master. To help you prepare, I have enlisted 2 students of mine to demonstrate proper technique and form in a duel for you all. Remember to take notes and stay focused. I want you all to learn something from this. Caseus, Corbin, you may begin when I give the signal.
Master Drolig stepped aside as Caseus and Corbin ignited their lightsabers. Good luck.
You too. Ready? Begin!
Caseus held his guard up as he and Corbin slowly began to circle each other. Corbin then honed in on Caseus and attacked, striking at his feet. Caseus easily parried the attack and attempted a counterattack to Corbin's arm, which the latter easily dodged. As they fought, Sarah crept closer to gain a better view of the battle, her worries temporarily subdued seeing her closest friends engage in combat. Corbin attempted to knock Caseus off his feet with a sweep of his leg, but Caseus was quicker, leaping over his attack and delivering a swift kick to Corbin's chest, knocking him to the floor. That all you got, Corbin? Corbin huffed and got back on his feet, attacking faster and harder. Caseus was now back on the defensive, waiting for an opening. Corbin struck at his head with an overhead slash, but Caseus caught his blade in a bind before spinning and elbowing Corbin in the back of his head, knocking him to the floor again. Come on, Corbin! These Padawans want to see a fight! Corbin stood and slowly looked at Caseus. Something was off, though. He didn't see the strong, determined eyes of his friend. It was that same glassy look in his eyes from the night before. Corbin? Corbin's head twitched to the side as his face twisted into a grimace of fear and anger. Corbin? Corbin suddenly looked at Caseus with a fierce gaze and lunged at him as their fight continued. Caseus continued to deflect his attacks, but something felt wrong. Corbin was striking as fast and as hard as he could towards Caseus' vital areas. Caseus continued to defend against his friend, but he was soon breathing heavily as Corbin growled and punched him directly in the face with his mechanical arm, drawing a few gasps from the audience. Ow! Easy, Corbin! Corbin didn't let up, however. Caseus saw a fire in his eyes, a desire not to win, but to kill. Corbin let loose with a series of powerful strikes that sent shockwaves through the arms of Caseus. Master Drollig soon stepped forward.
Corbin, that's enough!
Corbin didn't stop. His next few slashes knocked the saber from Caseus' grip before he backhanded the Padawan in the face, knocking him to the ground. Corbin! Corbin raised his blade over a terrified Caseus and struck down, but his onslaught was stopped as Sarah jumped in, grabbing onto Corbin's arms. Corbin, stop this! Turning to Sarah, Corbin hit her in the side of the face with the pommel of his lightsaber, knocking her to the floor, and turned back to Caseus, who reached helplessly for his saber. Corbin struck down, screaming in anger, but two blades stopped the attack as Master Drollig and Master Terran stepped in. Corbin was like a rabid beast as he continued trying to fight before being quickly subdued by both masters.
Call the Temple Guard!
A nearby Padawan quickly alerted the Temple Guards, who rushed over as Corbin writhed in anger. After a minute, Corbin was subdued and breathing heavily. He was shaking as he returned to his senses and saw himself in restraints, along with a group of terrified Padawans, and his best friend holding Sarah in his arms while looking directly into his eyes with fear.
Caseus,
The Temple Guards quickly removed Corbin from the training grounds as Caseus held Sarah, trying to wake her up. Sarah! Sarah! Her head slumped off to the side as Caseus held her.
Caseus, give it to me. I'll get her to the doctors. Now, come on!
Caseus nodded and handed Sarah to her master, who swiftly rushed off as Master Terran escorted the Padawans away, leaving Caseus alone in the empty training grounds.